Hi there, thank you so much for joining me again. Today I'm working on this 16 by 12 inch canvas board, and what I've discovered when I've actually opened it is there is a little fault. It's just a little line across the actual board. So I've remedied that by putting a load of white acrylic paint on and just using a roller. This is a Speedball roller, but you could use any type. And as you can see, it's creating loads of texture, which I now want to go into with this silicone blade. I'm just going to scrape some flat areas because I want to do a really textured picture today using acrylic inks, a little bit of paint. So I want a variety. I want to get some different movements going across there. Little bits of detail which are going to hold the paints and the inks and create hopefully an interesting painting for us. As you can see, I've just done some very random shapes, little bits of sort of cutting into the paint, and now it's completely dry we can actually see what we've got. I'm sorry if it interferes slightly with your viewing. The texture is actually making it a little bit responsive. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use a little bit of white paint. I'm going to use a black ink, which is most unusual, a red ink that I've made up myself. I'll explain that a little bit in a while, and one of my favourite burnt sienna liquid inks. And I'm just going to use, first of all, this household sponge, and I'm just going to wet this area in the centre and then apply a little bit of the titanium white. I want a soft centre to this. Now, I know I set off with this in a landscape, but I think I'm actually going to use it as a portrait sort of shape. And straight in with the burnt sienna. And using the soft part of that sponge, I'm just going to move it into that area in the centre. I want to just spread the ink about. In the centre where the white paint is, it's becoming a little bit more opaque, and I'm just going to add a little more white around the edge and blend it in. And I'm just going to sweep around there. You can see how much it softens. I do love the burnt sienna inks. I will put all the colours in the description as usual. So on that outer edge, I'm just going to spritz with the clean water, and then using this other silicone blade, which is one of my favourites, I'm going to push it and get it to move around this board, because what's going to happen is it's going to run into the areas of texture that we've got and provide some really interesting features. You can see how it's running beautifully here. Now I'm going to be really brave. I don't often use black, but for this one I wanted something dramatic, and I'm just going to drop a few drops of this Liquitex ink and just move it around a little bit. You can see how bold a colour it is. At this point, we can't really see exactly what's going to happen with all the effects, so it's going to be a bit of a journey as we go along, just to see what comes out. Tilting that, I've wet it down, just get it to move, lift out little areas that you don't want it to settle in. There's nothing to say that you have to keep these things just because they run into them. And then we'll intensify that burnt sienna, go straight in with the inks again. A little bit of movement there just to break that line up. I love where the black ink is running, but I'm adding a little bit of white paint there and just softening some of the areas, so we're getting some greys mixed in with that black. It's very easy to pull it across the texture because the blade is nice and soft, so we can get that to move really nicely. Now let's put a little bit of burnt sienna in this top corner here, and again we'll just tilt it down, a little bit of a spritz to get it moving. Just the clean tap water, and again stopping the ink where you want it to finish. Okay, now this ink I made using a beautiful red. This is Alizarin Crimson. It is a completely transparent paint, and I just wanted to make light ink with it, so I just mixed it with water in this application tube, and it is the most beautiful colour. It's a beautiful red. It's perfect for this time of year. We've just moved into meteorological autumn here in the UK, so all the trees are starting to get some colour, and it's one of my favourite times of year. So I'm using that paint straight from the tube there, and put a little bit more black up at that top area just to balance the black we've got lower down. This is all part of the exploration. I'm already liking some of the shapes that are becoming obvious now that the paint has dried. So we'll start to break up those areas with adding little bits of inks, little bits of paint. I'm going to pull that little bit of black ink a little. There we go. Lovely. And we can spread that a little bit around, make some shapes, push some lines into it, and get back with our silicone spatula there, and we'll just pull that around. I don't want it to be solid. There's a little bit of white paint up there as well, so we've got some nice greys going on. Let's break up that bottom line there, give us some form and some shape. This is what I love about abstracts. You can just add, create, observe, stand back and look at what you're getting. And it's very helpful through a phone to see what areas are showing interest and work with those. And again, working straight from the tube with the paint, a little bit more of the ink. It's very runny and it's hard to control, but it's okay, you get used to it. That's beautiful. Next to that black, it really makes everything pop. I'm just going to add some over the top of the black as well, because although you can't see it perhaps from a distance, it does actually mingle very, very nicely. Again, just using a few colours, you have less risk of clashing, of using too much in one area. There we go, add a little bit more red into that centre. We've got a sort of bar, a horizontal bar across there that's slightly lighter. I like that. We'll work a little bit around that. And using that ink, it really softens out. Now, I like what we've got so far. It's dried, but I want to add a little bit more of the burnt sienna down into this corner. So it's completely dry. So the first thing I'm just going to do is take it straight from the bottle using the little dropper, little pipette, and we'll draw a line across there with it. And then I'm just going to pull it down, and that's going to warm that bottom corner. I'm going to just wet this flat brush and just pull that very gently down. Don't want it too runny. And I'm going to actually add a little bit of black in here again, right into this centre. The dark next to the light areas is going to make everything really stand out. Let's put a bit underneath there as well to emphasise that. And just let's soften some of that out. A little bit of water on this flat brush, and we'll just soften a few areas. We'll pull that down. We've actually got some really interesting shapes. I don't know if you can see, but there's a sort of curve, and I'm going to accentuate that. So I'm going to add a little bit more red underneath there, mixed with the black again. Again, apologies for the interference. And now I'm just going to add a little bit out of the tube with this Alizarin crimson. It's the most beautiful colour. It's a real red, cherry red, and we'll pick out those little bits of lines and accents. Let's put a little bit down there. Yeah. Got the beginning of that curve just starting at that bottom part. So we'll add a little bit of detail just to suggest and let the eye find that shape. See how it's sweeping down? So we'll continue it down at the bottom as well. I'm liking that, but I just need to add a little bit to this top area. This is a little bit empty. So I'm just going to add some of the the red. Just in a little bit of a line, nothing too dramatic. And let's put another little bit there as well. That's really making it pop. I'm just going to take you in here and have a little bit of a closer look at the texture we've got going on. You can see here how it's blended, how we've got some areas which have grazed with the inks and the paints. Such an awful lot to look at. It's amazing. Just 3 simple colours and a bit of white, and yet we've created a different world. The darks against the lights really pop. I hope this will inspire you to have a go, and if you do, let me know how you get on, and I will look forward to seeing you all soon for another project. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and keep painting. Bye for now.